welcome to Design Voices Elevated Season 2. Today we are in London meeting Aleksandra Melnikova. Hello, Aleksandra.
Hi.
Welcome.
Thank you, Marcia.
Where are we today?
We are in the design district at the heart of North Greenwich creative community, which is very exciting. This is our office. New office, bigger office. We're growing, which is very exciting. We're in our second year as a Cosmic Velocity. So, yeah.
Yeah. Do you want to tell us a little bit about Cosmic Velocity and what you guys do?
So we design products, services, and training for businesses who care about design. So ultimately, we speak with people, we do a lot of inclusive research, and we are hoping to change a lot of things in the world. We work in sustainability sector, work with education, work in transport. We're not industry specific, more kind of we say we solve quite a few, or we attempt to solve and try and make better a few very wicked problems that are in different parts of our world, which is exciting for us. We work with international clients as well a lot.
Can you tell us a bit about your story, like where are you from and how did you get to North Greenwich in Cosmic Velocity?
Path to North Greenwich. So I studied arts and design in Lithuania. Well, I was born ages ago in a country that doesn't exist anymore, I always joke, but then it became independent Lithuania in 91. And I have studied, I went to quite a few art schools. I was always into drawing, into painting, sculpture, but I wasn't quite sure what I wanted to do. In fact, I don't think I'm quite there yet. I'm not an adult. I'm not, as I always say, like I still don't know what I want to do. I keep figuring it out on every project and every new interesting assignment. And I studied art, and then in the second year of my studies as an exchange student, I won kind of a scholarship to go to Milan, to Politecnico. And this is where I discovered freedom of choice of courses. So I picked up a lot of courses in cinema, philosophy, all of those things that were like master courses. And I was still in my first degree in the bachelor. So I studied a lot in there as opposed to partying for about a year. And then we had a conversation with the university. They were like, try and apply for a scholarship for your master's, try and return. And then they kind of coached me a little bit to apply, and I've applied and got in. So this is where I've done my master's in product service systems. And by then I spoke Italian. I was very ambitious. I didn't speak any Italian.
Quindi lo vuoi fare in italiano?
Sì, facciamo fare in italiano se vuoi. Il mio italiano fa un po' schifo perché 15 anni che non ho parlato.
Okay, it's not very inclusive.
Okay. No, my Italian is a bit rusty because I haven't spoken it for a bit. But I went to Italy then to properly study product service systems design, which I loved because it included everything from like coming up with the idea to like, but who needs this idea? Who are the stakeholders? What are the distribution routes? What could be the flows? And, UX back then, so I was studying 2007 to 2009. It wasn't really like a very big thing, and even service design was still not formalized. Like a lot of the teachers that taught me then formalized and written books about service design and how to approach it. So when I finished Politecnico, I still didn't know who I wanted to be. There was a bit of a moment where there was 55 or 53 of us in the course, and we were all from different countries, different contexts, and that was the value that we got from this university, because we were all designers.
Always that, right? Yeah, the people you meet.
It's so exciting. Yeah. And then I came back home for a couple of months. And to be honest, I was like, well, where do I start my career? New York is a bit too far. America, like, it's good design. Scandinavia is a bit too dark. So, and climate. So I thought London. And I've never been to London, but I landed in London with like 2 suitcases 15 years ago. And after my first couple of weeks in like really random locations, I kind of started my career here, which was tough, if you ask me.
Yeah. Because so how did you start your career? Like, what did you do?
I still did end-to-end design. As one of the first jobs I did, it was very much from like brand and conception of brand to basically logo to expression to digital stuff. So I did like a lot of end-to-end things. up to my second year in here in London, where I finally got into like an agency. And then from then onwards, I just did UX, and then I led teams pretty fast. Like I accelerated. I was lucky and privileged in a way that I worked a lot, but I also had super supportive environments in those agencies where they promoted me very fast. I was at Foolproof in the beginning of my career, and I still have very fond memories of that. I was at quite a few agencies, Polk, Radley Elder, Bio Agency. So I started as a lead and then very quickly became head of UX and design. And to be honest, I've always stayed the practitioner. So I was at the same time ensuring that I run the team, but and empower the team to make their own good decisions. And also, I'm not too far away from the practice of design, which is exciting. I love creating things, but after a lot of thinking. So I try and encourage people to think and research, and then come to certain things where we can experiment and test. But I just hate the idea of design as just a creative discipline. It's not about an act of, being amazing at thinking and coming up with something. It's working with people for me.
You were telling me just a minute ago that you went to present at UX London, and there you talked about design for disability and specifically in the context of children. Can you tell us a bit more about that?
Yeah. So I really early on in my career understood when I did a bit of product design, physical product, like the handles, the chairs, that I didn't want to make another chair, that I wanted to make change. Well, how do you make change? And where do you make change? Because you can stay in like large corporate companies that have a lot of reach, but then you really need to get under the skin of like what they do. You need to believe in it. And I found that throughout my career, I had a special passion for removing barriers for people. I felt very passionate about inclusion. I was always doing these projects on the side, like almost at night. So literally in one of my roles as a head of, with a friend of mine who was also a part of the team, designer, we went through a mental health first aid course, and it was super helpful and taught you how to approach mental health subjects, how to behave in a crisis, how to help other people. But after the course, they've given us a book like this thick, and half of the links were not working. So we were like, but like, is there a digital resource? And we went online, and it was really bitty. So we basically taxonomized. We kind of did like focused research for a couple of days. And luckily, as a head of, in all of my roles, I could kind of carve a bit of time just to say, like, I'm doing an R&D project. Just like, let me focus on this. And we've done that like a couple of days of taxonomizing, and then we went, okay, this is the mental health resource. We tested it. We included links. We included like specifically ran a bit of research in the company, figuring out what the main issues were, like burnout, like kind of when you feel you're out of the creative inspiration. So it's very context specific to an agency. But I really wanted to have a resource where people could go to going, here's the things that I could do, but also here's the phones that I can ring, or people that I can talk to help me, like therapy. And we've done like a really good taxonomy, still running, still live. And they're still referring to it as like a great resource that was made. And I was like, it was made out of hours. It was made by two of us, basically, just sitting together. She was coding and I was doing the UX and the parts of the design, and taxonomy and content. So it was very like self-driven. So the interest comes from, and through those little projects, I realized that I want to include more of that in my actual like agency work. So when I started my own agency, I said, we're going to do more of this. I have done testing and research with people with disabilities. I'm not going to like wait for the right project. We're going to try and include it in every research project that we do. We're going to run events on it with people with lived experience of disability. And I'm passionate about it not only from accessibility perspective, because I think as designers, we think accessibility, web, but also inclusion, so context, copy, culture, like the fact that, we might just not have access to a certain resource, not the fact that it's inaccessible on the web, is what kind of drives me to change that. I like changing things for the better with design.
What about the focus on children?
The children-specific one was very much so. I have a daughter. I'm a parent. So for me, I've noticed that, and we've taught in a few universities and a few schools design courses, because we design training courses on design thinking. And I went in schools and I couldn't help but notice how open the thinking is. And I've done a lot of research with children even before my own agency. Just so happened that I had some projects with like innovation within digital, and when I've noticed when you put children in a room, you get like amazing outputs, and you facilitate that, and there are so many ideas. And then I was really, really pleased that we got the commercial projects specifically looking at the materials within the UK school system that are helping children with disabilities, but with no diagnosis. Because in the UK, the system in here is such that you wait for a diagnosis. You can be waiting for a very long time. Until then, school doesn't necessarily have the resources or the money from the government to make adjustments that work for the child. So what they do is they try and figure out what adjustments are needed by themselves, and it varies a lot. So we've done this project to see how we can help and how this could be better. And it was a commercial institution I can't name, but it gave me a lot of hope that things are changing, and we're continuing to work with them within neurodiversity space. So it was not particular, like it was another audience. I work with different audiences within the space of inclusion, and it happened to be like I would love to do a project with older population, for instance. I didn't yet have a chance to work in there. I'm now doing a project within healthcare with fun facts. I can talk about this forever, but did you know that there's only about 1% of research kind of worldwide that is done specifically on female-specific conditions?
I did know that.
Very, very sad.
Sad.
And trying to change that, and speaking to women of different ages, and that's very exciting for me. It's like all the underserved population, and we definitely have been an underserved population for ages. I mean, I know I run an agency. Only 1% of agencies worldwide are founded by women. And this just blows my mind every time every time I speak about it, I'm like, how the other 99%, like how does this metric come into play? And I want to change that. We're a female-founded agency, so I want to change that. I'm very passionate about it, about the opportunities, and
I'm really passionate about this topic of women representation, obviously, because I'm making a whole series around that, but also the fact that designers are not necessarily those that end up founding businesses, and in your case you are a woman and you're a designer founding a business, which is quite special, I think. But what's your experience in that? Like, why do you think it's so hard?
I think there's a multitude of factors, really, and one part of it is that the investors. So we when we funded it, we didn't seek investment at all. We didn't need to, also because we were kind of practitioners. We were very determined to kind of make money as we make money.
Yeah, you bootstrapped it.
And we bootstrapped it. But a lot of investors are still within that same circle, not only male, but like connected through institutions, being a foreigner in a different country, having your network through like great clients you worked with for like 15 years. It's really good. But then at the same time, it's still, it can feel quite exclusionary, I can say at times. When you do attend those events and you do ask for funding, people best relate to people like themselves. Yeah. And I think there is a rule of kind of majority in there, which I'm seeking to break into in a good way, to show, look, like if we benefit, everybody benefits. Like the latest studies have shown that the businesses and founded by women actually are profitable, more so profitable. And it's one of those things where there's hard metrics on it, there is studies on it, and it's still like sometimes I understand why more women do not start the business. It's so difficult. It's difficult to sustain the pace of work, to prioritize sometimes days. So I'm lucky that my daughter understands, and I kind of weaved her into my work a lot. And she, went to conferences. She was 2 years old for the first time.
How old is she now?
8.
Okay.
She can take a really good picture, record a podcast. Literally, she's like...
this is kids for life.
I know. She's brilliant. She's brilliant, supportive. She can tell me when I'm funny. She can tell me when the talk doesn't work. She can tell me, like all these things, the feedback. but I suppose it's harder. We do a lot of invisible work. It's from that perspective that I think there is a lot of struggle within that space. So it's kind of the issue of entering the barriers.
Yeah. How did you experience the shift, like having, like working before pregnancy and then, having your child and then going back to the...
Oh, it was terrible. And I've done something that I would not recommend anyone to do. So I love my job. And my job is not my job. It's like design applied to life. Sometimes clients say, I need you to design a team for us. And I come in and I interview a lot of people who are in the team, figure out like their frustrations. I'm like, okay, if this would be, it's a living, breathing, thing. How do we change it? It's so interesting. For me, it's probably the most interesting. And I really struggled actually when I went on maternity super late, like a couple of weeks before my daughter was due to be born. And she was born, and then I started freelancing maybe when she was 3 or 4 months at night. So I used to feed her, like through the day she would feed like, every hour and a half. And then I would start my working day at 8 p.m. and finish it at 1 a.m. So I would do a full freelance day. And then I would do that for about 3 months. I ran myself to the ground. I was intellectually kind of thriving in that space, and I was really lucky because a couple of my friends kind of said, oh, we will give you the job, like do it in your own time. So they said kind of take it in your own time, however you want this, which really helped me, and the clients were super understanding, but it was so difficult. And then when I was coming back into the market, I was having these chats with recruiters when she was like 7-8 months. And they were like, well, you need to lower your rate because you're rusty after maternity, 7 months. It was so infuriating. And to be honest, I almost did. I kind of like just did the halfway thing where I was questioning myself, like any designer, like, am I rusty? Maybe I am, maybe. Despite like all of this still. And I feel very passionate about like supporting others to not have that journey because it's very unfair. And then I started working. I returned to the office. There was a lot of pressure, and I don't know, personally speaking, my marriage did break at that point, so I also separated after that time because I got back into the office, full-time job. My daughter was 1, and I had to travel to Heathrow every day for 2 hours there, 2 hours back, because I was working with British Airways. So the project was amazing. I struggled through those. Like I've reached and achieved all my goals, but like there are so many things that I'm thinking in the future perhaps I would do really differently, and I would prioritize different things.
This is very helpful because I'm with my second right now, so this is actually really good to hear. What would you do differently?
I would probably, it's going to sound interesting. I would listen to myself more and to others less. What I needed, how I needed to do things. There is a lot of expectations, and like it's interesting on a woman. There is always some sort of expectations. Like, do you do this? Are you married? Are you not? Are you working? How are you working? Or you're running a business? You must be prioritizing the business so your kid is underlooked, and like, oh, your kid is always there. Like, isn't that going to be traumatizing for? Like the whole thing is just like there is no good way of doing it. Yeah. So I just, in time, actually, I found my own way with my daughter that I only did things that I loved doing. So I love doing design, and I love craft, I love sculpture, I love art. So I would take her to Venice Biennale, and we would every kind of couple of years, architecture art, we would do architecture art. And we would make a deal that half a day we're at the beach and half a day we're looking at art. And like, mom is not to be interrupted. That kind of worked, but I still like striking that balance with what's important for me. And same with this company. I started it at a very difficult time in terms of Cosmic. Like, I was on a good, secure salary in a good position. We just got acquired. 2 things that were difficult for me. There started to be more politics, which I'm interested in organizational design, and I'm not interested in politics and of management or like trying to reach somewhere. Throughout my career, I was trying to do things, not reach to become something. Yeah. Like it's different. I don't really care that much about the hierarchy. For me, it's an empowering and enabling step to be able to have a team that is supportive and to support them. But at the same time, I just never really cared about this. And there became a lot of these kind of things once we got acquired. And second part is that I realized that my work is going to become more kind of advertising focused because we got acquired by an advertising company.
Right.
So for me, selling and service, I want to serve, I want to solve problems that are like access to healthcare, that are education, that are long-term. All of these things, the world is full of things that I'm sure, even from today, we could pick up little stories where things could be better and we could enable that via digital route, whilst actually, designing a new website for laundry liquid doesn't interest me that much.
I can see that.
So, and I understand why it needs to exist from a marketing and advertising perspective. It's just not my craft.
No.
So, yeah, that's.
But good on you that you know how to, draw your boundaries. Say, okay, I do not want to do that. Despite whatever money you're throwing at me. It's just
it was so tempting. You have no idea.
No, I know.
It's just so tempting. And I went into a much smaller salary. It's not even a salary. If I don't do new business 1 month, we're not going to have a pipeline. Yeah. So I think going into this uncertainty and running it for 2 years, I'm immensely proud of what 3 of us have achieved.
Yeah.
And kind of beyond at the moment, scaling, working with many more people, and actually looking back on the projects, they're all kind of human impact projects. We are aiming to decrease death at sea. We're looking at how teachers plan their lessons within education. We're looking at sustainable energy and how people change their homes to be more sustainable. So, we had a vision session in the beginning of our business. 3 of us got together and said, okay, what would we like this to be? And in a most interesting way, we said, we want to work with education. We want to work with sustainability. We want to work with kind of the conscious sectors, but for profit, for benefit situation. And in 2 years, we look back, we're actually, we ended up working with all these people, but we thought it's impossible. And when you're in the work, you're you can't see it from kind of a macro view. So I feel for agency, it's super important for you to zoom out and be we've achieved all these things, and we keep
Also
doing.
to celebrate, right? To celebrate that you actually managed to do that.
Yeah, it's very tough. Being an Eastern European celebration is just a bit we only pick up things that are need fixing. So I learned this with my team. At some point, I had some feedback maybe 10 years ago for the first time, and I really tackled it when someone said, I don't elevate enough when, the moments. No. So I elevate people, but when the moments of celebration, and I'm let's fix these 5 things that, and I assume that everything else that is going right doesn't need to be underlined and be see, we've done really well here. And I think it is tough. It's a cultural thing, yeah.
It's not a cultural thing. Yeah. What is the one thing that you have achieved with the Cosmic Velocity that you're most proud of?
I think our client set that are diverse, they are from different worlds, startup, corporate, training. We've trained HMRC, we've worked with the government, we worked with big companies. So the client set and being able to deliver the value that we delivered, makes me very, very proud of working within the space, as I mentioned, kind of inclusion, but also just delivering good products and services and training. The change that we brought sometimes, recently I was interviewing, I was doing a research project and I was interviewing a participant within healthcare space. And then she sends this email after to the client, copying me and saying, actually, I've learned things about myself through this interview with Alex, and I just want to say thank you to her to kind of bringing those things up.
Nice.
And it was I rarely get feedback in the moment on my work, and I was oh. And the startup we worked with within healthcare space, they closed their next round with the help of our work. So I'm really pleased with things like this, where we help the business close the round, help generate the money and the momentum that it needs with design. This is my dream. This is applying design. I think in these 2 years, And then I'm also really proud of low moments. So we had low moments when there was like a quiet month in this 2 years. There was like one, there maybe were two, where it was super hard and you're working and you're like, where's the end of it? Like, I don't know, like I'm doing so many things. I'm doing so much new business. There is so much work that I'm actually doing, and it's not closing and it's slowing down. And the clients are like, maybe yes, maybe no, we don't have the budget. And it feels like this insurmountable kind of like a wall that you're in front of. And I'm very grateful for the support of my co-founders as well, Olena and Steven, that are relentlessly working to make that happen.
Can you tell us like a moment in your career that changed everything for you?
I think Milan has changed. Like when I was studying in Academy of Arts in Lithuania, I really loved it. It was kind of the education that encompassed everything. Again, we had philosophy, psychology, a bit of physics, a bit of like, it's not a narrow education, it's a wide education. And then we had like physical, so the day was divided in two. In the morning we had kind of sculpture, drawing, painting, so all of the physical things that you would do. In the second half of the day we would have history of civilizations, like different theory up until like 6 p.m. So we had like tons of subjects and a lot of exams and things like that. And I loved it. And then I studied really, really hard for the first couple of years. I mean, to be honest, all of my life I studied really hard. That was kind of the theme. And when I got this scholarship, this exchange year, I went to Milan, which was completely different. It was more experimentative. It was more like, oh, you choose this subject and you try things. And I think coming from quite a strict education system, it's really nice to see. For instance, for the first time I worked in a group in Italy, and I was like, wow, because we were all like very like much, there was a lot of focus, individual assignments in back then. Now Lithuania is completely different. It's like really kind of tech hub opening up, and I love what's happening in there. I really, really love it. But then it was quite different, and I think with Italy I saw the different, and I learned the different language, and I realized how open the world is actually. And I was like 18 or 19, so this is leaving the house, you know, living alone at that point was just like all of the experience.
Yeah, that's something that I usually recommend to everyone, spending at least a couple of years abroad and just experience other ways of doing things, and it's so important.
Yeah, I love that part. I think that's what changed everything for me. Changed me because I saw how like the different cultures can be. We worked a lot with, I had friends from like China, Japan, completely different languages, seeing the linguistics. It's just so fascinating. And that made me come back to Milan, and then that made me kind of leave for London. And this was a change number 2, because I still remember like here with suitcases, knowing absolutely no one. So it's not even like, I had one interview scheduled in a random place with kind of a random brand agency. Yeah, don't ask. But basically it didn't work out straight away. And the first question I was always asked in London is, do you have any UK experience? And I said, well, if you don't give me a chance, I have a few. I've studied. I have worked in Lithuania as a designer for a bit, but more a graphic designer, so print. But yeah, that changed. Like the change of context changed everything. I realized that I'm more free, and all the restrictions are kind of a bit the mind thing.
Yeah. What's your analysis of the design market right now, and what do you feel is coming next?
I want to say like it's getting better because
I don't think it is.
I think it is. I mean, we're about to have a change of government, hopefully.
Okay, here in the UK,
yeah. So I think it will change for the better. I do feel like there were moments in which it was really, really dark. So let me approach from 2 perspectives. One is like commercial perspective, like are there design roles? Are designers valued? And with all of the overhiring that happened in COVID, and then all the remote switch, then when all of the layoffs started happening last year, obviously it sent the ripples through all of the design market, and all the companies started reformatting. And with the AI coming in and kind of maturing to the level that people thought that it could be a legitimate job, which is still, it's still, we work a lot within AI space, and it still very much needs humans and responsible, ethical humans who are designing, who are checking the data sets that are going in. It's a separate conversations. But I do feel like there were kind of really dark moments when overall sort of design perhaps was viewed as a bit less important operationally than it actually is. But that is also a little bit of a narrative fault from the, not fault, but like narrative peculiarity from designers themselves as well. Because if we talk about our craft and what we do as a, I'm a creative, I like coming up with things, that's kind of one thing. But if we talk about it as it's really problem solving, it's getting deep into the structures, the people, the how the thing is made in order to optimize, in order to make things better, to make them different, to remove friction, to decrease pain, to whatever we're trying to achieve. That's very different. And then talking the business language of, well, how is that going to transform the business? What is this going to bring in terms of revenue, in terms of business optimization? I feel in that narrative we have a bit more of a chance of being heard, chance of winning, chance of, if you like, being included in a proper scale.
I don't necessarily agree with the narrative of design as a problem-solving mechanism, It's just because I think it reduces it to a level of a toolkit, It's just a way to solve problems. I don't think that is necessarily true. And there are a lot of other disciplines that actually do solve problems, like engineering, right? I think design is way more than that. And I think the reasons why we got to where we are is also because we've been looking at it as a way of, isolating a problem and fixing it. And the narrative hasn't really helped, the growth of a practice into something that is a bit more relevant towards, the definition of alternative futures, which I think is what designers are best at.
Helping others imagine the future that doesn't yet
Yeah,
exist.
and executing over it, right, in the development of that.
Yeah, but it's such a tough sell. I think,
Oh, yeah. I would never try to sell that. We're talking between me and you.
Yeah, that's fair. And like, I think this is how I usually do start the way in the business. If the business is quite closed, you're like, well, I could help you look at these things and solve these things, so you experience less pain. It's a bit like, here's the thing, it's a bit like reactive and proactive healthcare. So if you're in that like reactive space, you're like, I can, fix the immediate pain, but actually that immediate pain will be coming from your underlying things that you're experiencing or even habits you're having. So let's have a look at that. Once we've like extinguished that fire that is happening with the symptoms, let's figure out in the pain, let's figure out what exactly is influencing this. So for me, it's that bit, but the entry, like it needs to be at some level, I think, strategic, recognizable, yeah.
Okay, I have one last question. There is about your hope for the future. And when I say that, I refer to design and design practice and the design community.
So I'm thinking about it. I think one of my biggest hopes for design community is that intentionality of it will come to play a bit more. That we will start, stop thinking about designing interfaces or like applying for a job in a company that is like really great brands. Don't get me started on this. But like the intentionality of like, how is what I'm doing answering two questions? A, how is it utilizing my skills and my strengths and where I want to be as a person after doing this work, like reflecting on that. And B, how is that impacting the world and how is that connected to the rest of the system that is kind of inevitably connected to any of the design projects that you're doing, be it like on a micro scale of like designing a product that helps someone schedule the appointment to something, or doing a service design piece for education or healthcare. Like there are still so many connections and design decisions, they make a lasting difference within that system. So sooner we start looking at this and optimizing for this, and not to use optimizing is not the right word. Sooner we'll start realizing those connections, and I think kind of talking about it and seeing design as this discipline that is kind of sensitive and responsible. That is kind of, I think that will bring it to a different level, and that's my biggest hope for it. That's what I'm working for.
Yeah.
That's what I'm here for.
Nice.
to ensure that this is happening more and more. And yes, we talked about all of that. More founders within a diverse space, and that's.
Well, let's hope
hope.
to have inspired some of that
Yes.
in people.
Yes,
today.
it's going to be very, very hard and very difficult, but it's
But
worth
it's worth
it.
it.
Yeah, exactly. It's very
All right,
worth it.
Alex, thank you so much for being with us today.
Thank you, Marcia.
Thank you for listening, and see you next time. Bye-bye.
Thank you for watching this episode. If you have enjoyed it, please share it with your network. Design Voices Elevated is a short video series aiming to provide a stage to underrepresented design leaders to inspire new reflections and conversations. My name is Marcia Arico. I'm a strategic design consultant, design leadership coach, public speaker, and author. If you would like to follow my work, please subscribe to designmavericks.substack.com. See you next time.